Hey everybody. So this past weekend I was at Clericon 2 or Clericon 2024, run by Dungeon Minister. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun meeting everyone, hanging out, playing some games. And I think being there and talking to a bunch of other game masters face to face, it taught me a lot of stuff maybe I didn't know or maybe stuff I knew but wasn't really like brought to the forefront. And one of the things I think I learned just by playing in the games was how to end a session or where a good place to end a session or a one shot adventure is and not be beholden to what you have planned. So I'm Tristan. This is Heroes and Homebrew. So Clericon, in its second year now, is a small tabletop RPG con run by the Dungeon Minister. A bunch of us go there and we play. This is my first time being there. It started last year. Todd from Hex Press was there. Daniel from Bandit's Keep, Mage's Musings, Grumpy Old Slan, Bear, the Gen X DM. There is a bunch of guys there, a bunch of YouTubers, a bunch of podcasters, and we are just all playing, having games. There was other people there, of course, too, but it was just a bunch of people from that universe all coming together and playing games with a bunch of other people. And I played in Todd's BX game. I played in the Tomb of Horrors game, and I played in one of Daniel's Chainmail OD&D games. And what I think I came to realize when I was playing, specifically in Todd's game and Daniel's game, is where's a good place to end your adventure. Now, when you're in the con, you're constrained by time limits. There's like 3 hour time limits for these games, which is fine. In my home game, I run 3 hour games. I have a hard 3 hour time limit, and I like it. I don't think going beyond that, it gets a little tiring. So you want to find like the good place to end. Specifically, when you're playing a one shot, where's a satisfying ending? And if you have a bunch of stuff planned, should you be beholden to playing out everything you have planned, or should you end it where it feels good? And in both Todd's and Daniel's games, it ended before we got to the other stuff they had planned. And it was very satisfying that way. And I'm going to explain why. Both those games, and of course, this can't happen in every game because you're not going to recreate everything, but both of those games ended on a high note for everyone playing. In Todd's game, we, as a party, escaped the keep that we were in that was overrun by zombies and cultists, and we managed to make a break for it out the front doors, through the courtyard after firebombing everyone and lighting everything on fire, and just headed for the walls, threw a rope over, climbed down, and we were gone afterwards. And I did not watch. I know Todd did a video series of him planning this adventure, and I purposely did not watch that because I didn't want to know anything going into the game. He said, well, I had a bunch of other stuff planned, like a hex crawl, and like I think I just planned more than I realized you would be able to get through. But at the same time, we ended the session on such a high note. It felt good. It felt natural. It felt like the right place to end it. The worry would be if we continued on and we did the hex crawl and we played for another hour. Granted, we couldn't because we were at time. It was lunchtime. Everyone was hungry. But if we had played another hour or so and continued that hex crawl, would the ending be as satisfying? Would maybe after we've all escaped from this dungeon, this keep, and we all felt good about what happened, and if we maybe lose a character or two, they die, is it the ending going to feel as satisfying as just throwing the rope over the wall and making a run for it and being like, yay, we made it? Maybe not. And kind of the same thing happened in yet Daniel's game. He had planned a chainmail battle to get to a tower in the middle of the board, and then the tower would be a dungeon. Now, I will preface this by saying it was an 8 o'clock p.m. start to the game. We were a table of old men, and we were playing well past our bedtimes. So, we were all like, yeah, okay, let's cut it at 10:15, 10:30, whatever it was. But we played the chainmail, which was a lot of fun, and we got to a point that looked very dire in the battle. We had lost three player characters, and of course it was just refed, like, here's a new character sheet. You're playing this force now. But we'd lost 3-player characters. We were beset by griffins, and I was kind of far back in the corner of the board, well a ways from the tower, and I had 2 forces in front of me to get to the tower. So, like, it was unlikely I'd even be able to get my character and my forces to the tower to proceed into the dungeon. But what happened was we managed to continually roll really well. I smashed into these 2 forces. They were both facing away from me, so that gave me bonuses. I was rolling. I hit both times I smashed into them. I wiped them off the board just from that single charge. We went like around the table and everyone was rolling 6s, wiping out these griffins, and we managed to get to the tower. And no matter how hard you tried, you would never be able to recreate that. You would never be able to recreate that sensation and that excitement of like, oh my God, we're actually going to do it. We thought everything looked bleak. We looked like we were in the worst position possible, but we actually managed to destroy these forces that were kind of holding us at bay and push through and get to the tower. Yeah, Daniel had a whole other thing planned. We're like, okay, you're in the tower, you're going to do a dungeon. But again, if we had done that dungeon part, and if we had maybe lost our characters or we all died in there, that would have taken away from the excitement of what we did beforehand. And so we ended it with, okay, everybody got to the tower. Hooray, you won. Because we were on such a high note. Like, we had rolled incredibly, like, for a couple of rounds in a row. Everything went our way, and it was exciting. And we got to that point where we were like, all right, hooray, we did it. And we ended it early. Like, we didn't make the 3-hour time limit. We ended it early, but we ended it feeling really good about what we did, and we'd had a lot of fun. So it made me realize that just because there's more to the adventure, it's not necessary to play it through. If you get to a point in your adventure where your players are riding high, they've had a bunch of successes in a row, they've accomplished something that maybe looked really dire and impossible to do, then there's no harm in saying, you know what, like, that's it. Like, you guys succeeded. You overcame this obstacle. That's where we're going to leave it for tonight. I know there's a lot of advice saying, oh, well, you should end it on a cliffhanger, or end it where it feels natural, or, like, sometimes end it on a down note because it'll make them want to come back. It's dramatic. But there's nothing wrong with ending on, like, we succeeded, like, yeah, we could play it for another 45 minutes. We have more time left, but why not end it here where we're all feeling good about what we did and we had a lot of fun? Because going past that might, take away from that amazing accomplishment that you had before. Delving into that dungeon after, succeeding in a grand battle, delving into that dungeon, if everyone dies, then it ends on kind of a bummer. Like, yeah, okay, you probably still had fun, but you're not going to talk about hey, we destroyed the keep, or we destroyed the opposing forces. It's going to be like, oh, we went into the dungeon, like, we got TPK'd by 6 giant spiders or whatever. The story should be the great success that you guys had. The story should be like how much fun we did and these amazing rolls that we had in a row that, like, let us accomplish something we didn't think we'd be able to do. Not like, hey, we did this really cool thing, but then afterwards we kind of all died, and yeah, like, it was fun, but it would have been nice to succeed. So that's it. Like, just, it made me think, you don't have to push to finish the adventure you have written. Even if you have more stuff planned, even if you think like, hey, this would be really great, we're going to do this after and this and this. If your players get to a point where they did something amazing, call the session for the night. Like, you guys did great. Let's end it there on the high note. Like, maybe obviously if you've only played for an hour, they've done something amazing, then keep playing. But, like, especially in the case of a one shot or a convention game, just cutting out what you had planned for afterwards, even if you think like, oh, this part's just the small part, like the real adventures later on, you could just call it and say, like, let's end it there. We had a blast. You guys did something great. We had like 3 players roll double sixes in a row and destroyed all the griffins. End it there. It Everyone had a great time. Everyone's going to be talking about that for ages to come. I know I am. Every time I talk about this con now, I'm going to tell the story about how we decimated those griffins and took the tower, and that was it. We succeeded. Or I'm going to tell the story of how we escaped from the keep because we threw canisters of lantern oil. We made Molotovs out of them, threw them out into the courtyard. We lit everything on fire, and then we just booked it for the tower. With one guy was like floating above us because he took like potion of levitation or something like that, or a ring of levitation. So he was just floating like a balloon. We were just pulling him on a rope. That's a whole other story. But it was fun. It's a memorable story, and it was a perfect place to end those adventures. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of food for thought. I've got a bunch of other things to talk about from Clericon. I've picked up a couple of games I'm going to go through, and I'm excited to take a look at. So there's more to come. Anyway, until next time, save a seat for me at your table.